Since US troops withdrew from Afghanistan, the country has fallen to the Taliban very, very quickly. As I think you're probably all aware, we did a video on it earlier in the week. But what you may not know, a lot of the viewers of this show are British, is that the US corporate media have come out in droves, absolute droves, to kind of peddle this pro-interventionist, neocon, hawkish narrative. So there's an article here from CNN Business, which I think is a really good example of just how manipulative and opportunistic the mainstream media is in the United States. And we have much of the same problems here in the UK, especially our tabloids. About 80% of our media is owned by 3 billionaires. That's very, very bad. But what CNN is doing here is very obviously pro-war. And I haven't seen as much of that in the UK media. I've seen a lot of stuff that's, very, anti-immigrant, things that are very anti-working class, pro-austerity, things like that. But this is something really incredible. So, the article, the title is this: the Taliban are sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals the world desperately needs. So, this article and several others like it that I've seen already are talking about how Afghanistan is very, very rich in certain natural resources. And it's primarily lithium, right? And lithium is a very, very important mineral in a lot of different aspects of the productive part of the economy, right? And they are especially important when it comes to lithium-ion batteries. It's very, very, very useful mineral, right? And like I said, it's been valued at about $1 trillion, the reserves in Afghanistan. So the US government has taken the military out of there. And what's a really, really interesting thing is this is such a mask-off moment for establishment corporate media in the US, because usually the arguments are pretty much entirely on the basis of these people are a threat to us. You see more of that stuff on Fox News, or we need to stand up for kind of liberal rights in that country, and that's what you see more on MSNBC, CNN, those kind of shows. But this is just very obviously trying to sort of manipulate people into viewing interventionist policy, US imperial occupation of Afghanistan after the destruction of Al-Qaeda, because that's what it was really, wasn't it? It was an imperial occupation. After Al-Qaeda had been destroyed, there was no real reason to stay there, other than kind of imperial exploits. And they're trying to say that actually that's very important because lithium is very important for technologies that are more based on renewable energy. So we need that to tackle climate change. So actually, we should send troops back in. We should do a second invasion of Afghanistan. And there's article upon article upon article that have already come out. And there has been a little bit of that coverage in the UK. The Independent did a very similar article about it. But it's very hawkish when you're seeing the TV footage, when you're seeing the online stuff, when you're reading the articles from corporate media in the US, whether it's the far-right, conspiracy-ridden Fox News stuff, or the kind of centre-right, liberal, fiscally conservative, socially liberal kind of stuff that you'll see on like CNN or MSNBC. Doesn't matter. They both serve this role of protecting the establishment. Now, that might sound a bit kooky, right? And I can hear myself, don't worry. But when you look just a tiny bit deeper, you see that's very much the case. Crystal Ball, for example, really struggled in MSNBC. She's a fabulous journalist, but she really struggled there because when she wanted to speak the truth, when she wanted to give adequate airtime to more left-wing candidates like Bernie Sanders and more left-wing ideas, she was shut down. And these companies are owned by incredibly wealthy individuals, incredibly wealthy. And they've given free coverage, which is almost entirely really, really positive, to candidates that are pro-establishment. And for a long time, they believed that's what Biden was. And so they gave him a lot of really, really positive coverage. And of course, that was free. But very little coverage of Bernie Sanders, and if they did do coverage, it was very negative. It was very negative. So they have an agenda. They absolutely have an agenda. And they've been criticising the Biden administration far more for this than they did for the airstrikes that have killed civilians. Far more for this than they have done for the grossly inadequate targets of net zero emissions by 2050, which the US probably won't even reach anyway. But even if they did, that would be really inadequate. We need to be getting to net zero by 2030. They're not, hitting him on those things. Not hitting him on the fact that he's not pursuing Medicare for all and the Democrats won't vote for it. They're not hitting people, Joe Biden and other Democrats on those kind of issues, on backing down on a higher minimum wage. Which $15 is what they've been saying for a while now, but I mean, that's now inadequate because of how long that debate's been going on for. So really, it should be $17. But that's besides the point. So they will absolutely tear you to shreds if you threaten the kind of corporate imperialism that the US does so well and has done for so long. But if you're not representing the actual needs and interests of the American people, it's not so bad. As long as you're on the blue team, or if it's Fox News, as long as you're on the red team and you're racist and transphobic and homophobic and hate poor people. As long as you kind of fit those categories, it's fine. So, very predictable of the US mainstream media. However, I didn't expect it to be so explicit. And they're trying to kind of twist it as this kind of we care about climate change thing. Well, if you care about climate change, you would have accurately criticised all the candidates who didn't support the Green New Deal in the 2020 Democratic primaries. And you didn't do that, did you? You loved them. You did all these all this golden boy stuff about Mayor Pete Buttigieg, all this stuff about Amy Klobuchar, all this stuff about Kamala Harris. People didn't want that. And Bernie almost won. But they hated him because he represented a threat to the status quo, to the corporate establishment. And of course, as we know, the only real winners from the Afghan war was Raytheon and the other extremely profitable just gone out of my head. And the other extremely profitable military contractors, weapons manufacturers. They made a lot of money. And now the media, and I think some people in the US government have turned against Biden. And Nicolas Maduro, who of course I wouldn't trust to run a bath, but Nicolas Maduro said something very interesting in an interview where he reckoned that because US intelligence said they thought it would take about 90 days for Kabul to fall to the Taliban, and of course it happened in way less time than that, that actually they didn't get it wrong. They just told Biden and his team the wrong thing. Because obviously, the intelligence services in the United States are very, very hawkish. And they've done a lot of horrible things throughout history. So, maybe that's the case. I don't know. Like I said though, it is Nicolas Maduro, so you can't really trust what he's saying. But I think it's definitely a perspective that we should be looking at. Because if there's anyone who knows about, deceptive US intelligence sort of maneuverings to encourage people to be more pro-war and pro-intervention and pro-kind of imperial extraction of natural resources, it's leaders in South America, let's be honest. They know that because they've had to deal with the US doing that to them for a very long time. So a real mask-off moment for the corporate media in the United States, and don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but that's why we need stuff like this. That's why we need, the Demographica Network. That's why we need, more independent media. Because, we're the ones who can actually just tell it like it is. Speak truth to power, as cringy as that that saying has become, thanks to Jess Phillips. But yeah, it's definitely evidence of the need to build an alternative media based on truth, based on solidarity. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that actually this is actually a legitimate reason to go back into Afghanistan and wage war again for those natural resources? I personally think that is absolutely no way a valid reason to cause so much more suffering and loss of life for that purpose. But I'm interested in your thoughts, whatever they are. Leave them in the comments below if you want. So thank you all very much for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next one.